Zacarías. How are
Hi,
you?
Jorge. I'm good. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for spending time taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. I appreciate you.
Thank you, thank you. Me too, me too. I'm very blessed to talk to you. And I
Yeah.
see that you bought my book, my English book. Finally, we have it.
Yes. I love it. No, thank you so much. Way to put in the work. Great work. I've read this, as you know, I've read this book in Spanish.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I recommend it all the time to everybody. Even people who are not strong in Spanish, I still recommend it because they just have it as available. There's a lot of you use a lot of primary resources to tell this history that's not as maybe popular as the fall of Tenochtitlan, right? That gets a lot of attention. But there's a lot more conquest and presence, Spanish presence after. And yeah, you cover this. You cover all that in this book. Very strong, with great detail. And so, yeah, I love your work. I love everything you do. I love your videos. Like the ones you put Enigma. Yeah, I forget the name. Enigma, El
Enigma
Tiempo.
del tiempo.
Gracias. Okay, no quiero. I don't want to mess that up. I appreciate his work. He's a fantastic producer too, right? With all
Yeah.
his special effects. But man, you just kill it with your information.
Well,
And how you hone in on its different states. I'm sorry. Yeah, what were
I
you gonna say? I'm
I
sorry.
hope to keep the good work because always the you know that in Spanish we say that the best subscriber always make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So in some moment, thank you for your words, but in some moment I'm sure that I will make a mistake. But we are not perfect, and this is the how is the life, right? So
Yes.
did you have the chance to read a little bit on
Oh
in the
yes.
English version?
Oh yes. And it's written very straight in a really clear way too. So yeah, I like it. I love this a lot. You did a great job. So you said who helped? Somebody helped you with this? Your family?
Well, I have a daughter. My daughter is now in is a how do you call it? Is a freshman in a college,
Oh,
and
okay.
and she's speaking a beautiful English.
Wow.
So yes, she helped me a lot in the.
There's
You
a
know
lot
that
of work.
in the Spanish version,
Huh.
the draw of the cover is from her. Okay, of the
I
way.
thought so. I
Yeah,
thought so. It's her drawing that right behind you.
yeah, right behind me. This one.
She
So
drew that.
that draw is her
I
her draw. Yes.
I had heard, but I kind of forgot, and it's just kind of it's astounding. It's interesting to remember again. I'm like, wow, she's done a lot of things.
It's
This is
my
amazing
little
though.
helper.
This is
But he's
great.
doing a lot. He's doing a
I'm
lot.
so
So
excited about this. You know, I'm very excited about this. This is incredible. It has so many maps and pictures, just things that you can tell you're someone that likes to go to the places you talk about. And you're not just a historian, you're an archaeologist. You say this all the time in Spanish, and I feel like it needs to be said in English too. A lot of the things that you make very clear that you're more than just like going through books and reading it. You do that part too, but you actually like to go to the places. And you've been to like New Mexico before. I've never even been there before. You live in Texas. You've been to Florida, I think, too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I like Florida. Yes, a lot.
Fort Moss, right?
I've been in California.
Those
You know
areas.
that.
Yes, that's
Yes, I did
what's
all
funny.
the missions there. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love California,
Uh-huh.
but I hate it at the same time because
Hmm.
it's so expensive that my goodness.
It is very expensive. You telling me,
Uh,
man? This
yeah,
part is
I have an
expensive.
old Suburban, old Chevrolet Suburban,
Uh-huh.
towing an RV, and that cost me you don't know how I pay in gas.
Oh my goodness.
Going
Yeah.
from Oregon to Washington, Oregon to across to California, I was just very glad to be in Arizona because the gas prices just drop
It's
and
like
oh
it's like night and day, right? That's what
yeah
we say in English. It's like black and white, just across the border for Arizona and then much cheaper.
yeah
Okay.
yeah
That's crazy.
yeah.
That's funny.
It's,
I
it's
had
so
family.
beautiful. It's so beautiful because you know that I went to the Carmel mission where
Mm,
is Fray Junipero Serra. I hope
mhm.
I will have the time to write something in from
Oh, I
of about California, right?
I
About the
will.
missions. I hope to have the time for that, but
California,
you know, the
California
my
needs
projects are growing
something like
in
that.
my desk. So
Yes, yes, but
I,
California needs your perspective. They need your help. Things are tucked away in our tribes. They are not. There's a lot of people. I would say, yeah, I know the people who to get you in touch with too now. After it's been about a year since I think I've last spoken to you in one of these, but I've been to the California Mission Foundations conference since then. I've met a lot more people that are more serious about this work. I feel like, yeah, but we need someone like you. I was recommending you to everybody over there. Some spoke Spanish, some didn't. So I don't know if they how serious I'm about you. But I know that you would be of great benefit to a lot of their work. They're trying to do things that they've kind of started things similar like you, but you have brought it to another level that if they bring that same mentality and energy, I'm sure they would skyrocket. There's certain details about the Spanish history that aren't quite known. So sometimes historians over here or anywhere, when they don't know something, they'll fill in the gaps with maybe preconceived notions, prejudices, maybe, right? That they've maybe seen on
yeah,
TV or they've heard from other historians. And it's not necessarily like that. Um, even just understanding the mestizaje of Presidio soldiers may be a good example, right? So there's a lot that, right, that, when they reference the Spanish, they have an idea, right? They reference the Indios, they have another idea, right? But it's a lot more complex than meets the eye at first. So if you have a historian who doesn't quite think in that scope, they can make that mistake of filling in the gaps or what they think.
yeah. So this is what I'm doing. This is, is my way to work. And my way to work is I'm in the basis. I am an archaeologist. I'm a historian because I moved to the United States, and there is no work for an archaeologist here.
Mhm.
So if I wanted to do something about history, well, I became an historian.
Mhm.
But my focus on archaeology is the archaeologists need to prove, don't just to read. An
Mm.
archaeologist need to prove how things were done, how things happen. You need to prove.
Yeah.
Always looking for proofs. And this is the vision and thank you for your words. This is the vision I'm working in is my way to work.
Mm.
So yes, I think that it will be good. For example, I'm just remembering right now. I wrote an article for an exhibition that will took place here in the Briscoe Museum. This is about the Western. Okay, it's about that moment and when the Americans, the first Americans, English Americans, are moving to the with the Manifest Destiny, are moving to the West, right? So that exhibition is about that, and I was writing about the Spanish part of the San Antonio, the history of Texas, and I received a call from a colleague that he's Hispanic,
Yeah.
and I was writing about the inclusive that the population of San Antonio were in the 1800s. Okay,
Mhm.
because here came people from mostly they were Christianized Indians,
Mhm.
mestizos, and there were also mulattoes and black people. And the less that we have here were white Spaniards, because we
Mhm.
have very few people coming from the Iberian Peninsula or
Yes.
from Mexico, criollos from Mexico, right? We have a very few. And that was a very inclusive society. So that
Mm.
happens that people around here and people in the United States, they are obsessed, absolutely obsessed with a thing that never happened, which
Yeah.
is the caste system.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I get this, trust me, I see it online all the time, right? Because I work online and that's a lot of people's go-to, right? Like, no, you were just as racist as we were. You had a caste system, and that's like the first thing their mind goes to because they've had so many, yes, just like you said,
Yeah.
that's what I hear too.
So the critic from that guy is and of course I win that argument. But
Yeah.
the critic, he was criticizing me. How
Mhm.
you can say that there were not a caste system in San Antonio? And I said,
Mm.
okay, this is not the right question. The
Yes.
right question is how you prove that there were a caste system in San Antonio?
That's perfect. That is
And
exactly the point.
and
Yes.
he was like in shock, right?
Yeah.
How I have no idea.
It's a,
So this is what the American narrative, the historiography,
yeah.
the historians in 100 years ago in America, they were defending that no, there is a caste system and they were so corrupted and blah 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 blah. So it's not proof. They just repeating copy paste. So
Mhm.
he get in shock totally with that answer. Okay, so don't blame me. First, look for the proofs, and then we can have a debate. But
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because as yes, so just to clarify, right? So you're discussing I would say the ethnic diversity of the foundation of the mission, the San Antonio missions. That's what you're saying, that they had many different types of individuals establishing that mission, participating and enforcing the policy, like the Native Americans themselves. And you had Spanish people with the term Spanish. We sometimes think, oh, they're just from all just white people from the peninsula, right? From Spain, like how they are right now. It's them, right? But no, actually, it's our ancestors. And the reality is that many times these people that are labeled Spanish in the archives, in the documents, they're actually many people of color who have been Hispanicized over generations. So they may be considered Spanish because they are what citizens, as we could think of, but subjects of the Spanish crown, and they are people of color. And you had, like you said, there were mulattoes, people were mixed, black, white, you had black people too. You had mestizos, Native American mixed with European. And that's what you're saying, that in the archives that we have references of Spanish people who are that we just kind of think one way if we don't really know this history.
yeah, so in addition about this caste system
Yes.
is that they say the ignominious caste system that the Spanish crown implement in the Americas. The Spanish crown didn't implement anything. So, and this is something that happened at the end of the 18th century,
Yes.
because
The
the whole
paintings.
world, the French, the British, the whole world was involved in an illustration.
Yes. The
So the
Enlightenment.
same way they classify the species,
Hmm.
the animals, the plants, they
Yes.
classify this. They try to classify the human beings,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I got the documents, and the documents are saying totally opposite that the Black Legend is telling right now. Okay,
Yes.
so there is not absolutely not caste system. Another thing is that there were probably in some places there were something that we could call the classism.
Yeah.
Okay, so they
Yeah.
were social
Classic.
classism, and this is
Mhm.
implemented by some people that they say, okay, the Spaniards get the hold the power, and
Mhm.
then there were the poor criollos that they never get the chance to govern themselves. No, this is the history, and and thinking about that and study and get the archives, you get the conclusion that the real power, social and economic, was of the criollos.
Oh yeah.
Now, the
Oh yeah.
Spaniards they sent people to control the abuses of the criollos.
Yeah.
So they were
Exactly.
of officers of the crown to say,
Yeah.
okay, you cannot do this. You have to pay a wage to the Indians working for you. You have to do this. You have to do
Yeah.
that. And this is what the criollos they hate.
Yeah.
And for that reason, they make the independence.
Yeah. I
So
remember. I remember one thing. My friend Brigado Antifraude, and I want to say I remember this right. Maybe you can correct me. But he said he was debunking another channel who said the Creoles could never be a viceroy. They could never be a viceroy. It was illegal to be viceroy for a Creole to be viceroy. But that's not true. We have examples of a couple viceroys who were Creoles, and it's interesting that people jump to conclusions like that without even the el dato mater relato, right? It's like the
you're right.
information kills the narrative, and so you know, that's just one thing that's like people jump to conclusions a little too quickly before they know these things fully. And I think another thing with the caste system that's so silly to me is that the fact that these paintings, the caste paintings, is what everybody likes to reference. You know, you have the boxes and different shades of color of people. Salta para atrás, all that, right? Mestizo, and then it goes back to Espanol. But the reality is this: is that a real racist society doesn't mix. They don't encourage mixing, right? And there have been laws, there have been different discussions about encouraging mixing from the very beginning when the Spanish come to the Americas. And there are individuals who are of color who are very rich, like aristocratic indigenous women and wealthy black women in those paintings themselves. Those caste paintings they have poor white people in the paintings. And it's funny to me. I call them out all the time. Like, well, you want to bring up the caste system, then I put it on them. Like, you challenge them. These people have never been challenged before. And I say, you tell me, what kind of racist society is this? You have this black woman who's extremely rich, an indigenous woman who's an aristocrat, and then you have this poor white man. It's all over the place, man. And people were not stuck in individual lanes, what a caste system, a real caste system would be, right? No, on the contrary, they're just observing. That's like you said. It was the Enlightenment era, and they were putting labels and observing different types of things, the sciences, and that was an intent, a try to understand and observe different types of people. And so, but as a real caste system, we don't have, there is
Well,
nothing quite like that.
probably I will tell you,
Okay.
probably there are people studying the linguistics, right?
Okay.
So we have, in this case, we have the casta and we have the caste. So this is
Okay.
a false cognate, right?
Mm,
So it's two
that's a
words
good point.
that has the same spelling more or less, but really means totally different. So
Mm,
the caste system, we know that in English, caste means different steps in the society, depending on like the caste that they had in India, for example, right? This is
yeah.
the English vision of a caste system.
Yes.
But in Spanish means a different thing. Casta in Spanish is related to family. And we
Mm,
have even sayings, right? We have sayings, for example, that say, de casta le viene al galgo. What a galgo is a greyhound, right?
mm.
So that means that the greyhound is fast because has a fast dad, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Has
Fast
a
family.
father.
Comes from a fast
We have
family.
another saying, for example, de tal palo, tal astilla. So
Mm,
it's a saying that say, okay, this tree is strong because we put a set of a similar tree. So it's based in family.
in
And
English,
if
I
you
think
look
it's
at the,
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It might be something similar to that.
yeah,
Could be.
it's similar. Yeah, that's a similar. But we the most is the casta le viene al galgo. So the greyhound is very fast because the father was very fast.
How do you say greyhound? How is that?
Galgo,
Galgo.
Galgo.
Oh, that's easier than greyhound. Galgo.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like
it's
that.
galgo. And this is logical. If you look at those paintings of the
Mhm.
casta system, if you
Yes.
look at those paintings, you don't see enslavement. You don't see racial differences.
No, no, not
You
according to
don't
race.
see anything of that. Look at the paintings, and you will see families.
Yeah.
So it's a couple of a black man and white woman with a mulatto kid, right?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
are seeing families. You are not seeing enslavement or
Yeah.
whatever. I went in October. I went to make a tour in Spain, presenting the Spanish version, the new Spanish version of the book, which is this
I
one.
love that. Yeah,
If you remember, this
I
this is
do.
the evolution of the first Presidio, which is
Yes.
this one,
That's the one I have.
right?
I have the first one. Yeah.
This is the first one. Then an publisher just offered me to do
Hmm.
this and expand a little bit.
Hmm.
And I went to present this book in October,
Hmm.
and they made an interview in that museum. It's a museum, a private museum, which is the
Where, in Madrid or where?
Yeah, the Thyssen, Museo Thyssen, Bornemisza. They
Okay.
they made they made an interview for me in that, and there were paintings made by the Dutch, the Flamands, the Flanders, and the Germans about that time, about the 18th century, and was totally different because in those paintings, we
Hmm.
we could see white people and black people, but
Hmm.
in those paintings, the black people were like servants, always
Hmm.
like servants. And if
Hmm.
you look at the you watch the cast paintings Spanish, you see families. You are
Yeah.
not seeing uh, social steps, different steps for
Yeah.
each. So just the concept is totally different.
Oh, totally
And
different.
yeah,
Totally different. And it's
so
interesting because, and I, like you said before, there was there was classism, and that I think that many people can understand that, and there was, different families, different levels, right? And even I remember, as I said before, I mentioned about the criollos like being able to become viceroys. Well, Brigado Antifraude said that normally that people that were sent over to govern, right, were chosen specially by the king and by the royal individuals up in the peninsula because they trusted them, right? It wasn't a matter of them just hating the Criollos like that just because they were Criollos. No, it was because they had a special connection, right, with individuals out there, and they trusted them, and that was an important job. But yeah, and there's so much to break down. Yeah.
yeah, we have an impossible task. You already know me and how I my opinion, and I think it's too much for the hands we have, right?
Oh
It's
yeah, for sure. And I do see things. There are times we're living in different times. There's a lot of information being passed and shared online much faster than ever before. And one thing that I think of too, I remember this one debate about the Spanish Black Legend, and I want to say this one person, they mentioned something about racism, right? And they said this racism that we're seeing, maybe even all around the world, not just not just the United States, and around the world, but it's not just it's pretty modern. There's more modern aspects to it. Like from eugenics and how it kind of that spread around the world. It became popular. But and then even a little before that with Darwinism too, and so we see that that many countries, republics specifically, are influenced by that. And late after the Spanish Empire is gone, and so you have individuals like Sarmiento from Argentina saying more racist things, and but these kinds of things weren't being said by the Catholic monarchs or by, they weren't imposing, um, yeah, they weren't imposing those kinds of laws, right? Or with that kind of idea, which is kind of more of a modern ideology, you know. But yeah, but like any society, there are a lot of differences of different groups. Like even today in our
yeah,
society, there's
yeah,
rich
today.
people, poor people. Not everything's equal. That's just kind of
Yeah,
how life is.
and the
Everybody.
ones that had the money don't want to lose it and don't want to share it,
Yeah.
and this is the point to have classes, right? Because they
Mhm.
don't want to share. They have some
Exactly.
privileges. They could pay for some privileges and don't want to share with poor people, right? So we
Yeah.
have classism even today.
Hmm.
So okay, if you want, if we can go to through the book, if you
Of
want.
course. Yes,
I
please.
added
That's
as you
awesome.
yes, go ahead.
No, that's wonderful. That's a great idea. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I changed it a little bit with the Spanish version of the book, as I told you, because it was unmanageable, right? It was too much information for just one book or even for two. So I told you that we have three axes in the North American population,
Hmm.
and the first one was the New Mexico, and this book is focused in the New Mexico.
Yes.
Okay, so we have
Yes.
a lot to tell, a lot new things to tell, and things that change the current narrative. You
Mm.
know that because, for example, what I found in studying the Coronado, right, the Coronado expedition, and this is
Hmm.
something that I didn't have in the very first edition of Presidio, and I
Okay.
had to add it. I had to add Coronado, even if Coronado was not related to the Presidios.
Okay.
because was previous to the
Yeah.
establishments
He was
of the
exploring
Presidio.
before they were able to settle there.
But Coronado, the Coronado expedition went through the main places of the Presidio 100 years later and 200 years later. So from the Mexico City, they go north, and they were walking the exact places that 200 years after will be placed the Presidios.
Mm. Yes.
So it has a lot of good information
I didn't know
that
that.
add
I didn't know that
context.
you added that in there. That helps, right? With the
Yeah, and
context.
for example, I want to show for you a map.
Okay.
Let me. This expedition is very important because what I found, the American narrative, they think that the Cibola, the seven cities of Cibola, and even the Gran Quibira is a myth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those cities then that they didn't exist. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in that way to explain things about Spain that the Spaniards, they were kind of crazy
Yes.
and
And
naive, and they invented things and all of that, right?
mm-hmm.
So I was following exactly, and this is the archaeological part of my work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Following exactly the route that the Spaniards of the Coronado expedition just walked. And I found, for example, that Chichilticale is
Mm-hmm.
the current Phoenix. Is very close to Phoenix.
By Phoenix. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this
Uh-huh.
route from Ciudad de Mexico to Guadalajara, Culiacan, it was going by a kind of a route already known by the Spaniards. Not really much frequented, but they know that route. So they came to Señora and Los Corazones, and they found these two cities,
Mm.
right? And now this is the Arido America part. So it was
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to go with such a big expedition that Coronado put in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Coronado went with probably 2,000 native allies, and with around 500 Spaniards and a lot of horses and cattle and all of that, right?
Mm.
So to move such an expedition, the thing you need is water. You don't have water, you die.
Mm-hmm.
This is very basic.
Mm.
So from Los Corazones and Señora, there is a river that goes north by this road. Around
Okay.
here is a mountain range. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to cross that mountain range, and you join another stream, another river that goes down from the mountain range north.
Mm-hmm.
So to cross that mountain range, it takes probably 2 or 3 days, and so it's something that they could do it, right? In that time, even without water.
Okay.
Once you get to the next river, they had water, and they are moving north. So they finally get to the Chichilticale place, that
Mm-hmm.
there is a monument, a national monument, which is Casas Grandes monument, because
Mm.
they found there, and still there is a national monument, the American national monument, south east of Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
and they still have a big house for that. That is the name, Casas Grandes. When the Spaniards in 1540s is the moment that Coronado started that expedition.
Mm-hmm.
The chronicle, there is a chronicler, which is Castañeda, is the name of the chronicler,
Okay.
because you know that I am using just original documents, so I'm not
Oh yeah.
using any other thing. It's only
Incredible
original
insight.
documents.
Incredible insight. Yes.
And the chronicle is writing a diary of the expedition day by day, like many other Spanish expeditions,
Mm-hmm.
and they refer to that place. We came here, and we found a very big house that is uninhabited. No people living there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they found a post there to leave behind several soldiers, and the name of this is Chichilticale, right? So this is the origin of Phoenix, not even because this is the Gila River, the Gila River, okay, that goes to the Colorado River. And they get up north to the 7 cities of Cibola, and Cibola is very well depicted in the document. So I don't know why the American narrative is saying, no, this is a myth. The 7 cities of Cibola never existed, and blah 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 blah. What happens is that for an Spaniard of the 16th century, and the meaning of a city is very different from for a Indian.
Yes.
For an Indian that are living in some jacales here and there, they go to a 7, and it looks like cities because it's several houses of 7 even 7 or 5 or 6 floors, right? So for an Indian, this is a city.
Yeah.
But an Spaniard of the 16th century living in Madrid, imagine Madrid, goes there and see, okay, if you call this a city, it's okay for me, but this is just a small town, right?
Yes.
So that means to be a myth. The myth was that there, for the Spaniards, when the Father Marcos de Niza told them, no, I found 7 cities of gold and blah, blah, blah. That gold part was a lie. Which is just to convince the Coronado to go north, right? But the friar said, I found 7 cities. So the imagination of the Spaniards, they say, okay, we are gonna have those cities like in Mexico City, and we are conquered that civilization and blah blah blah. But they go to Cibola and they found that there was just several houses for the living. Well, what I'm discovered that is not in any book is that the chronicler is saying that Cibola is the town here that is 60 miles from Tusayan, from the Colorado River. Tusayan is like 15 miles to the border of the Great Canyon. And this is especially, we have three coordinates of the place of Cibola, according to the no, we have 4. Imagine that we have 4. 4 coordinates, and they say 20 leagues, which is 60 miles more or less. 20 leagues south of Tusayan. So if you go to the map and you take the measures, and you go that 60 miles from Tusayan is the place that we call today Sedona, which is a natural place where people have vacations there, and because it's beautiful and blah blah blah, right? And it's 20 leagues and 80 leagues north of Chichilticale, which is Phoenix. So you took these 2 coordinates, and the only place is Sedona. So there is another coordinate given by the Chronicle, and they say, okay, and we are around 40 leagues, which is 120 miles, west of Tigwex, which is this part, right?
Sure. Let me see. Oh, right there. Okay, Tigwex. So you said
Tigwex today is Albuquerque.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. This is not correct because Sedona is not 120 miles from Albuquerque. It's not obvious. So this is a mistake. This is the 3rd coordinate, right? The 4th coordinate is that the diary is saying we are going through a valley, short, like a cut in the mountain, surrounded by cliffs, right? And this is the 3rd coordinate, correct coordinate, because if you follow the Sedona River, you are going to very high cliffs, going to the place of Sedona. The problem is that not always is accurate. So, and of those four references that we have coordinates, there was a mistake saying that Sedona, the seven cities of Cibola, were
Mhm.
around here, which is
Okay.
today the Zuni reservation.
Okay.
So the American narrative is saying, no, well, the place is here. No,
Mhm.
you are discarding three correct coordinates
Mm.
and taking the bad one.
Mm.
Okay. And what I'm saying is, okay, I made my archaeological work.
Mhm.
I get to this route,
Mhm.
making sure that every reference in the book is according what I'm saying. And the
Mhm.
most important thing here is
Mm.
that all this part is almost a desert. No, a desert, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Huh?
you cannot go through this part
Uh-huh.
with 3,000 people,
Yeah.
5,000 cattle, horses, and all that because there is no water.
Yeah.
So the only place to go is through the river, through the Sedona River, right?
Mm.
And we have three coordinates that confirm that thing. So imagine
Wow.
how wrong is the American narrative
Yes.
and how wrong is to don't have that vision as an archaeologist, right? It's very
Yes.
wrong because
Yes.
the vision of an archaeologist is always to confirm, is always to prove, and you need to go to the following and imagine that I will show you the pictures that I have about this. So the seven cities of Cibola were here.
Oh wow. That was it,
So,
huh?
okay, so this is the road that came from Flagstaff to Phoenix,
Yeah.
and it's
You want to know something interesting? My family, my mother's side of the family is from Flagstaff.
uh-huh.
That's so interesting.
But this is the place of the seven cities of Cibola. It's not a
Wow.
myth; it exists, and
Yeah.
you only need to follow. It's like you remember that movies about Indiana Jones, right? They say
Yes.
no, never is an X over the treasure. Yes, there is an X of the treasure. You need to read the documents and follow the documents step by step, and you get that. Please use your common sense because you
Yes.
cannot move a 3,000 people expedition like this without water. So you
Mm.
always need to get to the river. Okay,
Yeah.
and here in this part is the river, the Sedona River coming this part, and we are
Nice.
surrounded by cliffs. And this is the only place in 1,000 miles around with
Uh-huh.
this exactly description that
Wow.
is
Yeah.
checking point
And,
by
and
point the narrative of the.
and that makes a lot of sense what you're saying about staying with the water because yeah, they would die off trying to go in a different direction where
Yeah.
there's no water and thousands of people, thousands of cattle, like you said.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have chronicles, we have accounts that
Hundreds.
is saying the same. The moment they get out of the water for 2 or 3 days, they started to die of thirst, right?
Mm.
They
Yeah.
needed water. And
Yeah.
we have, for example, the Jornada del Muerto in the Camino Real de Tierra Adentro there in El Paso, right? And the Jornada
Okay.
del Muerto, the
Yeah. What is
problem
that?
with that, they were going, America was not made in that moment for the carts, was
Okay.
made
Yes.
only for walking people
Okay.
and horses, but not for the carts.
Mm-hmm.
So they get out of El Paso, going north, following the stream of the river of the Rio Grande River, and there
Mm-hmm.
is a moment that the river goes through cliffs like this. So
Okay.
and they needed to have a different road,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of probably 30 miles,
Okay.
30 miles east of the river,
Mm-hmm.
through a very dry and plain and without water for a week or for 10 days.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, so everything is in the document. You,
Wow.
it's really amazing. When you read the documents, it's very amazing. And probably if you are not in the place, you are, for example, in Spain and trying to write a book about You don't
Yeah,
care about these small details, right? You don't
yeah,
care
like
about these small
the
details.
amount of leagues and yeah,
It's
they
not
kind of,
important. I don't know where
it
they
was
were, blah blah
it
blah.
was
But when
hot.
you
It
get
was
to the
they're tired.
place,
Yeah.
everything makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Everything, exactly. So documents are really very important. And in
Yeah.
this book, you have I don't know, but probably no. In this, because it's a concentrated one about New Mexico, probably we
Yeah.
have just 60 documents or so, right? But
And
it's a really important 60 documents. It's telling you
this is
the story.
incredible. This is incredible. And I know in the very beginning of the book, from what I remember, you did talk a bit about the northern, like maybe when the viceroys were coming and for the first time, and how they had like lots of like they were trying to pacify the north of Tenochtitlan would be Zacatecas now, right? And how
Uh-huh.
much just kind of how the behaviors of the different nations and tribes and like just kind of also discussing the rhetoric. There was a lot of good stuff before even New Mexico, before you talk about New Mexico, before all those other explorations and all the other like or Juan de Oñate, right? But there was a lot of other things happening too. And I remember all that, and I'm assuming it's in this part too, right? It's in this book too, all that.
It's about Juan Doñate.
Well, de Juan de Oñate, pero también also, but also of the what do you call it? Like the Chichimeca Wars. That was one
Yeah, the
thing that was very
Chichimeca War
fascinating.
is in the beginning of the book. Probably is yes. The index says in the 77 page, right?
And I remember you also had a really good point, really, really important point. And I don't, hopefully it's in this book in the beginning. I remember it was in the beginning. And I think it was the political rhetoric that rival Spaniards had with each other. And sometimes this political rhetoric gets taken out of context in order to demonize, I would say, what Spanish conquistadores or even governors and but if one doesn't read the primary resources, the archives like this or the chronicles, and they only pull a bit of political rhetoric out or any kind of thing out of context, they in order to I don't know generalize all the people, all the Spaniards, and all everyone. I remember you talking about how, and you gave some examples of how somebody had someone else thrown in jail because they were arguing. They had an issue, and it was like two different types of Spaniards. And then I remember how I think Hernan Cortes, I think you said, had debates and fights with maybe Nuno de Guzman, and
It's
how
Nuño Ventral de Guzmán y Hernán Cortés. Yes.
yeah, and I remember, I see these are things that I'm remembering that is very helpful for people to understand, right? Because sometimes if people don't understand that context of arguing or political ambition, they think they take one thing and they assume Hernan Cortes was like this is his entirety, right? They summarize his entire history with a political rival's one thing that he said one time, right? And vice versa, right? But as we know, Hernan Cortes defeated his accusations, right? He was seen and De Guzman was, he wasn't, right? So it's very interesting though. But I think that opened my eyes to saying, wow, because I've seen that too happen in California here in the California missions that you see Junipero Serra arguing with like Felipe de Neve. And then we have historians who are kind of picking sides almost, right? And not really saying, hey, like they're arguing over something. I don't know. There's something bigger here, and they have their own little ideas of how things should work. How things should run and administer and organize. And I mean, it was a hard time to live, right? And I think that's part of it too. That we kind of people nowadays may have some presentism, and they assume that the comforts and the decision making and the less stress that we have now was kind of probably the same back then, but it was absolutely not. It was a hard time to live. You had life or death decisions to make, supplies, people depending on these individuals. And yeah, and so there's going to be arguments, there's going to be issues, and not everything that one person says doesn't just that doesn't always apply generally for someone's character, right? And we can see that these characters are more nuanced. They have more details, more complex than sometimes what we're told, because these historians haven't read some of this initial stuff. They're reading something other historians who've tried to do their best, and they probably haven't read it. So that's why I appreciate your book so much, because you go so many times to the initial sources, and that's something I've always been interested in too. So you have to understand, maybe that's what calls my attention to you a lot, is that when the California mission thing blew up over here, my first thing was like, okay, but what are the Spanish records saying? Because we have all these English individuals who are in the media, who are in the, on the news, who are activists, but none of them really speak Spanish, at least not at that kind of level to actually read this information. What is Juanito Rosetta really saying? What are these other people really saying? Has anyone done the work? Because you're out here making huge accusations. You're calling them genocidal, and you're calling them all slave owners. You're calling them all kinds of wild, extreme things that many serious historians really didn't say before, but now all of a sudden it's like it amped up, right, with emotion. So that's when I was like, I want to know what the Spanish records are saying, and I really want to dive into this history, right? And so that's why I've been looking to translate information like that, and that's what probably has called me over to you so much. I have a similar idea for that, and that's kind of this idea I have when I look for translations. I'm looking for people like that constantly. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's a good piece of document. I want people to know about this, or oh, that's good too. And because I'm one of the only English people that's doing this kind of work as an Hispanista, well, I have to do it on all the frontiers, right? From South America all the way to California, to Texas, to Florida, New Orleans, and you've been extremely helpful with the United States Hispanic history of the United States. You are vital. It's incredible the stuff you know. It makes me wonder how long you've been doing this for. But there's some other individuals who are really good too, and in Mexico too, who are and in the Philippines too. And so yeah, there's the Black legend is everywhere, and that's where I have to meet and find these things to patch all the holes.
No, but you refer to a very interesting thing when you say that the presentism. So
Yes.
the presentism they are using is just to judge the past, to judge with the present vision of everything, of the work, agenda, whatever,
Yes.
and mostly just judging the Spanish involvement on all of this, right?
Yes. Yes.
But they are not using the same presentism in the opposite way. So just think, okay, we have Democrats and we have Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine after 500 years, the historians in the future for 500 years, what the conclusions they will get from that fight between
Yeah, the fighting.
Democrats and Republicans.
They're
So
they're terrible. Both are terrible. They're all terrible.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
they
all
are
you're gonna see.
insulting one to each other. In
Mhm.
500 years, they will look like Fray Junipero Serra claiming against a soldier or a captain or whatever. You
Yeah, that's
you
right.
don't you don't need to take those claims so strictly. Okay,
Yes,
you need to interpret also, but with the vision of the moment,
that's
not,
true.
not the vision, the actual vision, because we
That's
evolved
true.
it in a very different way, right? So we
That's true.
cannot judge all of this, and
Mhm.
and and this is the only way to get this. But there is a narrative. It's always a narrative, an agenda, and a political agenda that they want to implement, right?
Mhm.
For example, now they are saying, "Oh, how good is Trump because he just made an signature about to put back the Columbus statues."
Okay.
Okay, that's good, but all right. In the same time, he erased the Spanish from the White House pages. So
Mhm.
it's not so good for us, right?
Yeah.
As a Spanish speakers, as Hispanic, it's not so
Yeah.
good.
Yes. Yes. We
So
want to see Spanish flourish. It's a beautiful language. Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot.
the
It unites
point
us a
here
lot.
is that okay, you cannot just be so blind that then you see a Messiah here because
Yeah.
he is giving us so hard times with in other places in other fields.
Yeah.
That my goodness, right? So this is
Mhm.
the same in that moment. You cannot just judge the thing just by a document. You need to get the whole
Yeah.
pictures and read a bunch of documents and interpret. Okay, this guy is is a priest or is from the church,
Yeah.
and you need to clarify the intentions of that guy saying that thing in that moment, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because if not, if you are just reproduce that document like it is, you make
Mhm.
a wrong mistake. So
Oh yeah.
this is very clear. You always need to interpret, and something that I do, because all of us, we have some prejudices.
Hmm.
This is inevitable,
Hmm.
prejudices and bias, and yes, this is inevitable. So what you need to do sometimes, a lot, not sometimes, not just sometimes, a lot,
Hmm.
is to check yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm writing this, and okay, this is fair, this is objective. So I need to review in my mind. I'm being objective, or I'm letting my bias and my prejudices to interfere in my writings.
Hmm.
And this is something that you need to do. If you are not doing this, it doesn't matter if you are of Hispanic or anti-Hispanic, you will
Hmm.
make a mistake, right?
Hmm.
And I appreciate your words, and I know that many people are thinking that. For example, I have a friend in Spain, Paco Moreno, Francisco Moreno. He's a very beautiful. He's not a real historian. He's a divulgador, right?
Yeah. Francisco Moreno.
He's a scientific.
Uh-huh.
He's a scientist,
Hmm.
but was about it was about the biology or something like that. And he is the humble person that says always, no, I'm not a real historian because I'm
Yeah.
not graduated in history. I'm
Yeah.
a divulgador. But you cannot imagine how strict, how carefully this guy is talking about history, even if not
Mhm.
a historian. The point here is not to be
Paco.
a historian, it's to be right.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well,
Right?
I'm not a historian too, I'm a translator, so I get it, so I know
Yeah,
my place.
but even in that case, we appreciate. This is not like make another class, right? So you are above you because I'm a historian and you are not. No, this is not about this. This is
Yeah,
about
yeah.
to be careful, to
Yes.
be strict
Careful.
with the telling, with the facts, just the narrative, the facts. And this is
Yeah.
something that you are doing. I'm following you as well for quite a time, and you are doing that. So
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. I'm sorry if I'm I'm not following the mandates of the about the from the Hispanic, but I'm telling the truth. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes is
Well, I think you
just
said.
black legend, and sometimes is pink legend.
Oh,
And
well, I think it is great. It's good. You do a great job. I mean, I think something you said, which is it's very true, and I think people shouldn't feel like they have to hide behind like white legends, pink legends. They don't have to feel that way. Hispanics don't have to feel that way. We don't have to live with complexes. I think that the history it favors La Hispanidad. It just favors it, and it's not like I just made that up. It just after everything we're seeing, it's just like that's it pretty much it. I want Hispanics to live without an identity crisis, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, especially now, we weren't there. And yeah, I even say the same thing for many Americans, for people who live here in the United States who are not Hispanic, they maybe their ancestors weren't quite like ours, but you know what? That wasn't them either. So we're living in a new time and we need to look forward a lot, and bring the West together. That's part of my work is bringing people together, right? Even when they don't want to, I see people are just, you'll never unite me. I'm like, okay, Cretino, like, sure, whatever you say, bro. But I'm gonna keep working. I'm just built that way. Maybe it's my family trying to bring my family together all the time, and I've seen many great things where people come together when you never thought they would. So, and that's kind of where my ambition comes from. It stems all from passion, my love for my culture, and I know there's a lot of people who love their culture. Well, guess what? This is a part of your culture. This is where your culture comes from. It stems
yeah,
from this. It
and,
doesn't
and
stem from
we
these
need to be
other.
proud of it.
Yeah, yeah. There's no, yeah, and it's and and many people are already proud. Like Mexicans, so proud of their Mexican culture. It's just a matter of just don't close the doors. Understand that this. that a lot of things you love about Mexico, that's right. Also in Guatemala too, they have a lot of, they share a lot of things too, right? Their neighbors, they share it. Just because they're Guatemalan doesn't mean that they're totally different than them, right? Like no, they have a lot of shared history. And so it's kind of like that. We have a lot of common aspects, and I like to discuss our commonalities more than talking about how different we are all the time, you know. And a
Uh-huh.
lot of it comes from this history, thank God, 300 years, This Hispanic Roots Foundation, this is a part of Héroes de Cavite, right?
Yeah.
This is the United States branch now. I don't know. I love that they're doing this. They have more attention and all, but I almost, I, don't- I want them to get a lot of credit too. Héroes de Cavite, like I'm a huge fan of theirs, and it's like I do appreciate them having this extra little branch. But I was like, oh man, like too bad. Hopefully people don't get confused. Hopefully Héroes de Cavite gets a lot of credit for this because it's a part of the same crew. We're the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully
So
people understand.
probably I don't know. There is a different point of view about this. So they
Yeah.
decided to make it in that way. So we have to kind of
Oh yeah.
respect
I'm
it.
happy to help. I don't care. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm down to help. I'm gonna try my best.
Yeah,
But this is
and I'm
great.
doing as well as a volunteer thing. So I don't get it any revenue for to have this on the
Yes.
book, but I wanted to because the fight is here.
Mhm.
So Héroes de Cavite is making a very good job, but
Yes.
people
Incredible.
there are focused in Spain,
Yes.
and
They're big.
we need to reconquer Spain because
That's true.
I'm sorry to say that it's not. I'm not a political person, but it's about politics. This and the left there in Spain is just smashing the
Uh-huh.
history of Spain. So it's destroying from inside. So
Yes.
they
I've
have
seen that.
a hard task there in
Mhm.
Spain, but the important fight, is here in the United
Yeah.
States
That's true.
because what they are doing in Spain never reached the United States. So
Hmm.
yes, now they are doing films and they are doing presentations and blah blah blah, but you
Hmm.
need to do this in English
Yeah. That's right.
for people here
And a
because
lot of a lot of the bad ideas kind of start here and they get exported over to around the world, not just Spain. A lot of these ideas that that are against their own self-interest. There are a lot of individuals here in the United States too who hate the country, who hate their home. And obviously like I'm not like, I'm Anglophile at all. But I mean, at the same time, you can't hate your home, right? You can keep your culture, keep our language without hating the United States. And I'm not going to be a terrorist. So, that's what I'm saying. That I see that that's a common attitude out here, especially in the universities. You would be surprised. You think these are higher levels of education, and a lot of them, especially the state ones, are just some of the people that are coming out of there just completely they don't get it. And so yeah, a lot of the ideas come from over here and they get exported to Spain too, and that's why you said that to reconquer this is to cut the head of the snake oftentimes, so that's what we got to do, and I'm down,
yeah, so there are conflictive, controversial topics that they don't want to treat here in the United States, and we need to tell them in English to the people because
Yes.
I know a lot of people that love my work, but they are saying, okay, buddy, I cannot read Spanish, or yes, you can read because we have an iPhone, and iPhone you can translate, and there are
There's
a
a lot
lot
of
of ways
extra.
to read a Spanish book, but the problem is a invisible wall that they cannot just take it down, right?
There's a lot
So
of people. There's a lot of people interested in this kind of work, Jorge, and they're dying to listen to stuff like this. They want to know this history. Um, there are like as I told in my conference, there's just a lot of people with traditional values. There's a good amount of them here, and they wanna and they not even if there's just traditional values. I shouldn't just cope it up only that. There's people who are just logistic. They want to know the history as it's really told. They don't want these emotional narratives being told to us like that. And so I think there's a huge desire for this. But as you said, and a lot of these Spanish speaking authors are incredible, like Maria Elvira Roca Barea, some of the other ones too. Like there's a lot of individuals. So many, you know me, I'm always posting about books that I get. They're not in English. They don't have them
no,
in English. And everyone's
so
asking me all the time on my page, is that in English? Is that in English? Is that in English? They want to know, and I'm so glad that this is like one of the first ones that's like in English. Like I don't,
No,
I'm trying to remember.
probably is the first one, right?
Yeah, like I don't. Zunzunegi, I don't think he has in English. Marcelo Gullo has it in French. I don't think he has in English. Maria Vera Roca Berea doesn't have it in English. Dario Madrid doesn't have his Inquisition book in English. Yeah, all the none of them. So that's what I'm saying. This is a big step. This is amazing, and this is one of my favorite books. That's the thing. This is like one of the most important books that's given me some of the most important perspective. You know, because it's not just the data and the information you're providing, but you're also you're showing us how to think outside the box a little bit. You know, think differently. You know,
Yeah,
really, you know, be in the shoes a little bit. You know.
yeah. So yes, because they were pushing for a very broad narrative, and
Mhm.
sometimes unconscious, but sometimes with very interest to lie or to, and you need to look at
Yeah.
what you are saying. We need to think
Yeah.
out of the box and say, okay, well, let's rethink this again
Yes.
with the documents and
Yes.
starting. Yes.
It's funny because I told somebody this. That they'll tell this history they as in like, you know, maybe historians here in the United States, you know, and some of them don't, they may not even know what they're doing, but they have, some of them do, but they'll say an una hazaña española, right? They'll say an achievement that that a Spain did or the Spanish did, and then they'll always follow it up with like but this. It's like they'll like downgrade it, you know? Like, oh, this happened, but this. And then that sometimes we have to question these things and say, but what? But did that really happen like that? Or but are you telling that part quite right? You know, like it's good to ask these questions because I've seen so many times people get it wrong, but it goes unchallenged, you know? People don't know how to challenge it. And but they'll get things kind of off, you know?
Yes, you need to go to the base and then start a new investigation from scratch and rethink the story and be objective. This is very
Yes.
important.
I
And telling,
love,
okay, this is good, but there were also worse things, but we
yes.
can deal with everything. Okay,
Yes, yes.
but probably yes, there was a very bad guy, right? We know that we have some of them,
Mhm.
but at the end the whole thing was very good.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, for
just
sure.
confront that thing,
Mhm.
and this is
Confront it.
something that they are not
Definitely.
doing.
Yeah.
They have a very very bad narrative,
Yeah.
just
Very,
supporting.
very narrow, estrecho, you know,
Yeah,
very narrow way of thinking about
yeah.
this certain subject, you know?
We
Yeah.
have, for example, in another chapter of the book is about
Yeah.
the conquest of New Mexico by Juan de Oñate.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you about him. Juan de Oñate is a good one, right? To understand like the full
So, so,
context
so,
of it.
so Juan de Oñate, nobody take the bull by the horns with Juan de Oñate.
Yeah.
There are
Okay.
people in Spain telling lies about him, say no, he
Okay.
was the last conqueror, and what everything he did was beautiful and blah blah blah. And
Mhm.
then there is the opposite. Well, no, we have to take off all the statues because he was a very bad man. Okay, but what happens in the middle? What happens with the truth? Let's
Yeah.
know first the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because Juan de Oñate wasn't a very good guy,
Hmm.
sadly, but with him came to New Mexico some good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and this is something I made even several chapters for the conquest of New Mexico. For let me share with you, for example, a map that
Okay.
is there are a guy around here around El Paso and telling yes we can call those even stupidities, right?
Okay.
And then we have this map, and this map is according to the chronicle, to the diary of the expedition of Juan de Oñate,
Mm.
right? So I read 4,000 pages of original documents of the expedition Juan de Oñate to get to the map, to get to the chapter. It's a very long chapter telling everything,
Yeah.
and we have the truth is in the middle with this. And this map,
Yeah.
for example, is yes, if I recall, if you go, probably you have the book.
Oh
Let me
yeah.
help you with that. Is
I
the
see it. 167. 167. Juan de Oñate.
167, yeah, the conquest of New Mexico, 167. And I try to be honest, totally honest with, for example, Oñate. And there are some people, some guy in El Paso
Yeah.
telling the people that Juan de Oñate didn't cut the feet of the Indians.
Yeah,
Right?
you don't have to hide from that truth. You know, he shouldn't deny
But we
it. He
have
doesn't help anybody.
on those 4,000 pages of documents in the
Yeah.
Archivo General de la Nación en the Indias in Sevilla,
Yes.
we have the sentence and we have the execution of the sentence
Hmm.
signed by the Oñate himself.
Yep. Yep. There it is.
So
Hmm.
we have the document. We have the
Yeah.
sign of Oñate telling
Yep.
us that 300 years ago, 400 years ago, he cut the feet of people.
Hmm.
It could be good, it could be bad, according to the time, not today, according to the time.
Yes.
I don't care because I'm a historian, but
Yes.
I'm about the truth. So you
That's right.
cannot just because you wanna
Deny
feel
it.
your ego or
Yeah.
whatever. You cannot just
You can't
lie
deny
the
it.
people. You
Yeah.
cannot lie the people, right?
Yes. Because the people will find out and they'll present you for it.
Well, I hope
That's,
so, but because
you know.
sometimes you read or you watch some videos of people trying to be very Hispanic, no, or
Yeah.
very anti-Hispanic, and
Yeah.
and they are not telling the truth. So this is
No.
this is kind of, and this is I wanted to reflect this to be very scientific in the reflection of the diaries and chronicles and all of that
Yeah.
because people need to know the truth.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, and
And I
and
like.
we need to do it. And there are two maps. For example, this one is the second one about the expedition of Oñate. I this the previous one was in the page 173, and this other map is in the page 181. Right?
Nice.
And you see, for example, I'm sorry, but I couldn't translate the maps. Okay, I
Oh,
made it by
Jornada
myself,
del Muerto.
but
No, está bien.
most
Yeah.
of the maps are made with original names, so you don't need
That's
to
great.
translate.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
this is what I was telling you. The 21st April, yes, that one. The 21st April, they found that the river was going to the west for a very high cliffs, and they couldn't follow that road, and
Hmm.
they go north by the La Jornada del Muerto, and it
Hmm.
took them 7 days, and they barely made it. They
Okay.
almost perished in that Jornada del Muerto.
Mm.
Okay,
Hmm.
and this is about Oñate, and it's telling everything that we have. And there are people they're claiming that we cannot pay attention to the documents because I don't know because potatoes, right? No excuses for that because
Nice.
potatoes. And imagine
Just
that I
'cause.
read the original document in the Archivo General de Indias in Seville, about 4,000 pages, but you cannot say that, oh, we don't have the documents. Yes, we
Yeah.
have the original documents and we have a transcription and translation into English of the documents printed 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So I have the pictures of the book. Someone give it to me, and I have the picture. So they are claiming, no, we don't know for sure. This is a myth. This is a no. We have the original documents, and we have the
Yeah.
translations into English for 100 years so far.
Yeah.
And you are saying no. Come on. So this is something that we have to tell. We have to tell this story to the descendants of the people doing these things, good or bad.
Hmm.
We have to tell this for history. And
Yeah.
as I'm always saying, if you lie once, then you need to keep lying and one after the other, bigger lie and bigger lie and bigger lie. So
It's too much. Too exhausting to learn. Too much. It's
yeah.
exhausting.
Oh,
Agota.
well, this is how I work. I hope that people appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we appreciate this, and this is interesting. My friend, he has a channel too. He bought your book, your Spanish one, but he's super excited to get the English one now, because he was struggling with the Spanish. His Spanish may not be he doesn't comprehend as much, but he's a smart guy. Just the Spanish is a lot for him.
Uh-huh.
So he's
Well,
really
I
excited.
will try to keep the same level of linguistics.
Oh, that's
Not
fine. It's just some of us Hispanics that are born here in the United States, our primary language is English, unfortunately. That's just we live here, that's just how it is. But it's not this is incredible. Like this is great. But the reason I'm bringing it up though is that he likes Juan de Oñate, right? But he doesn't make up stuff. He faces everything that he does. He just plainly says this is our history. That's how he says it. This is our history. This is what happened. And he's like, and he sees all the nuances too. The fighting that happened. It was a response. So yeah, he just has a different way of seeing it. And I think you mentioned a long time ago in one of your speeches that we sometimes look at with the presentism again with buenismos. We're siempre queremos buscar los buenismos en la historia y estamos concentrados quizás demasiado en los buenismos, ¿no? And so we're a little bit in English. That means like we are constantly looking for like the good guy all the time, maybe, right? Maybe who's doing the good? What's all the good about? What's all the good? But in reality, we should be kind of just looking at things a little bit more objectively, and
yeah.
why, the whys and all that,
Yeah, so imagine how you can tell the story, for example, in the prehistory of Europe, where people were just slaughtering each other. That the same way that, for example, in the Chichimecas or wherever they were eating
Yeah.
each other. So how you could find some buenismo in there? So it's impossible. So the only thing you need to do is to show the facts, and this is what happens, and the Spaniard came here, and yes, they fought the Indians, and obviously because of the difference in technology and in many other things, the Spaniards won that war. Okay, that's it. We don't
and
need
the
to make it.
and the alliances too they had with the Otomi, for
Of
example, and
course, of
Jamaican
course.
borders. So they're like, I think that's important too because it's not a presentism that we're judging the cannibalism. We're not trying to demonize them, but we are telling the story very honestly when you say that the cannibalism for that time, their contemporaries were frightened. Their contemporaries were being attacked and eaten, and it was strong responses to behaviors like that. So, and that's what other responses were the allies that they made too. Maybe obviously other Native Americans didn't want to live like that. Whatever the case may be, they joined with the Spanish. Through some type of diplomacy at some point. So, I mean, I think Native Americans have been very complicit in the Spanish Empire since the beginning, and all the major conquests.
How you can, according to this, how you can explain? Okay, we know the conquest of Mexico, right?
Yeah.
How they try to explain that, but if you are lying in this narrative, there are some questions that came, and you just can't have an answer for that. So how do you explain? Okay, the Spaniards they annihilated the Aztecs, right?
Mhm.
The Mexicas, they just were heartless. They finished them. How do you explain there how the Mexicas were in an islands
Oh, alliance.
alliance
Uh-huh.
alliance with the Tlaxcaltecans and with the Spaniards and with the Otomis fighting the Zacatecos,
That's right.
the Chichimeca.
That's
So
right. And they were
how do you
also
explain this?
the contradictions of the stories. Yeah, the truth, el dato mata el relato. Another again, the information kills the narrative because the reality is the Mexicas they weren't annihilated afterward. They went and even fought. I think they went to Florida and they fought with the Spanish forward on behalf of the Spanish Empire. I mean, I've seen the codices and where they have the little eagle on the flag and it's a little
Yeah.
battalion of Mexica, un batallón de Mexica
And
that
they
are
were
going.
Mexicas.
Yeah, exactly. And so they weren't completely gone. Yeah, and that's something I met anyways, I won't talk about that guy, but yeah, there absolutely were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very complicated. When you lie once, you have to keep lying.
Yeah,
And
and
this is not.
Cortez is a good example too. He's told as his great demon, right? But then in the other sense, he's building a hospital for individuals in the area, so many were natives that got to go to the hospital, that he established, if, why do you build a hospital for people you're trying to annihilate? It just doesn't, the contradictions, you
Yes,
know,
because
uh,
the other thing is that they are saying no, the hospital were just for the whites. No, but we have
no.
hospitals called hospitales de indios. O sea, hospitales specific for the native people. So
Exactly.
so you are just committing genocide against them,
It doesn't
and you
make sense.
are building hospitals and universities for them. So
That's
come
right.
on,
And also,
please.
I think I read in the Chronicles, I think it was Bernardes of Castillo, but it might have been somebody else. But I think Hernan Cortes would practice quarantining with people who were sick. He would put them aside and have them quarantine to get better. But that's another example of they're not trying to annihilate, and that's part of it. Like, why would you try to annihilate? When you have so many native allies to fight on your side, why would you try to annihilate them? It's just counterproductive, especially even building the viceroyalty after building the cities. Annihilating makes no sense. I mean, they're the ones that are helping you build these cities. Yeah, these real.
No,
I
imagine
I
that
see it every day.
in we have the records in 300 years only less than 200,000 Spaniards came here.
Mhm.
So imagine if they push the same tactic than the British just to erase the people. So they were the whole Mexican Republic actually, which is bigger, which is enormous,
Mhm.
for less than 200,000 people. That was just empty, no?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what they made the Anglo-Saxons, and you know that I hate to use that because I don't think
yeah,
that they were Anglos.
yeah. Like
We
you talking
have
about the United States?
Germans, we
Yes, the
have
United States is full of other Europeans too.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were
Germans, Dutch people. I think the Dutch established New York, I want to say, and then the
yeah.
English
It was New
incorporated.
Amsterdam at first.
Yeah, New Amsterdam, right? And I think that, well, anyways, I don't want to get into why I know about that, but yeah, you have a lot of different types of Europeans going to the United States. You're
Yeah.
right.
So okay, I hope you enjoy my book.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry for I'm all talking to you, Rob. I appreciate you, man. This is incredible. I'm excited. You have no idea. I talk to you. I
It's
talk about you all the time. You're the best. Thank you for
it's
talking to me.
available at Amazon. Okay.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
it was like I don't know if you had that saying in English, like an Spain spine, like a wound for me. Okay, not to have for 2 years not to have a translation of the book, and many people in social media they were asking, okay,
Yeah.
we need your translation when. Okay, for the next Christmas, and now for the summer, and the next Christmas, and finally on March, or yes, March. Finally, we have it on March. So this is precisely I presented the first Presidio March 7 to 2023.
Wow.
So
That's
just
what
2 years after I get the translation. So I promise you that the next book will be sooner in English. Probably sooner in English than in Spanish.
I started my account April 1st, 2023. And it's funny, you were one of the first people I saw with Venezuela Provincial in his
Okay.
channel. And you're
Thank you.
promoting you're talking about your book, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that book's about. I didn't really know much about you or what you're talking about. But yeah, no, like I'm very blessed to have met you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you. God bless you, man. Keep up the
We,
hard
we,
work.
we send a hello to Emilio.
Yeah, Emilio. Yes, I love him, man. I
Uh,
like him.
You,
He's
you
meticulous.
did
So
you
good.
did you meet him in Madrid?
No, no,
Oh my
he
goodness.
went to Vienna, I want to say, over the weekend, and he was busy throughout the
Okay.
week. And there were so many people I had to meet. I met a lot of people, so it was very little time.
Now that there is a very good people, and I know another friend which is Antonio Moreno Ruiz. I don't know if you know who is him.
Yeah. Oh, I
He's
like him.
a birded guy like you.
I like him. They just made a video that I want to start. I want to pick apart. I
Yeah.
really like. It's about the La Leyenda Negra sobre los Borbones,
Yeah.
and I see that used by la gente, los seguidores de Simón Bolívar, y que o los que que no se autotildan de defensores de Simón Bolívar, sin embargo justifican sus actos por los Borbones. And that's so I get a little like, no, no, toma
It's something
responsabilidad.
that not working here, right?
Yeah, no, no, and so I see the pattern. I see the pattern of what's happening, and that they're always, because then they start to overlook all the things that the Borbones did do, right? Like invertir dinero para construir más ciudades o hacerlas más fuertes o expandir hasta California aquí, por ejemplo. Las misiones pasaron por esa etapa. So like that's what I'm saying. Like it's not all black and white, okay? And so
No,
yeah.
they are just pushing the narrative of the Bourbones and the 18th century, which is a decrepit century, and then the end of the Hispanic Empire, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But probably that was in Europe, but in America, the 18th century is the gold century for the Hispanic Empire.
That's
Was
true.
the when the borders reached the
Alaska.
farther and they were very respectful with the natives in that moment. Things that didn't happen in the 16th century, but it was 200 years before, 300 years before. The story, the people in that moment were really different. They
Mhm.
were really more aggressive in the 16th century than in the
Yeah.
18th century. So the 18th century is the
And
gold.
from both sides. Yeah. And
Yeah,
from all sides, all people at that time,
yeah.
not
So
just,
we
yeah.
have all those laws, all those rules, saying, for example, no, you are the commander of the Presidio, and you need to stop a half a league out of the native rancheria,
Mhm.
and then just go, you captain and you friar, you left the soldiers behind, and you two go to the rancheria and ask for permission
Ah,
to first establish your camp outside of the rancheria. So all of this is the corpus, law corpus that they implement to respect the natives. So
yeah.
it's amazing. So
It's amazing.
it's
And in
something that
California,
I will be putting in my books here and there,
mhm,
and just to try to show the real truth. And you cannot tell them this. They were so respectful that, okay, we have permission to camp outside of your town.
yeah.
So imagine
Like,
this in the 16th century. We
yeah.
cannot.
Well, and then like in California, the Presidio base had to be, I think we consider now like 15 miles. I don't know how you would say that in the metric system the other way, but
15
it was
miles could
about 15
be
miles, whatever, how long that is. But
five leagues. Yeah,
probably, so you
probably.
like, well, we have Monterey or to Carmel. The Carmel was the mission, and the idea was that Presidio soldiers still further away, and they were not being to they wouldn't be so close, but it's part of the same mindset, right? And so, I think a lot of that gets overlooked, and of course there's going to be errors from some of those monarchs, the Bourbons, but it was not all bad, and because that's sometimes we're told. I see it online. Some people really get carried away because they're silently trying to defend Simon Bolivar, or they're trying to defend the mythology of their independence or the beginning of their country. Like, for whatever reason, they have an affinity toward their nationalism, and so so sometimes they'll say, "Oh, it was all because that he was provoked. Simon Bolivar was provoked, and this and that." And so they don't often. And what I really see behind it all is that there is propaganda from a lot of these type, these places with their public education system, where you can't even talk bad about Simon Bolivar. For example, Venezuela, they have a rule against it, and so there's a lot of the education over there is. It's just there's a pink legend toward Simon Bolivar, and
Yeah.
and then they start to avoid other things like his own ambition, obviously, but like his influence of thought being from outsiders, being in France, passing time in France, passing time, with English people too, who also helped sponsor him, and yeah, so a lot of that kind of just like, oh no, we don't talk about it. It was the Bourbons' fault, the Kings, those guys, it was all their fault. I'm like there's a lot more. It's a little more complicated than that. A lot more black and white. I mean, not as black and white. A little bit more gray.
Yeah, the same case, for example, I'm just reminding right now. The same case they are saying no, the America they were British. No, they are not nothing in common with the British. So
Oh, oh, United States. Yeah,
the
yeah.
English, the
Yeah, the
English.
English,
No,
English in the
America
United
is not
States. Yeah,
English. It's
it's not
America.
England. Yeah, the English did their own thing, right? They did that too, but they did their own thing. You can't, if you generalize, you can't confuse them because then you make yourself look
The
like you don't
English
know what
were
you're talking about.
pushed out of America. So
Yeah, they were barely there. They got kicked out. Yeah.
in Spain they have right now that narrative. No, the English are the worst, and the Americans are also English. No, they are not English. Come on, you need
English.
to understand
I,
this.
yeah, and it's yeah. What was I gonna tell you? It's and that you're not I wouldn't say you're an Anglophile like that. You're just trying to get things right. You don't want to confuse people and make them think the wrong things. Because if you start to get it wrong, people are not going to believe you. They're going to think you're a liar. Like people here in the United States, for example, there's a big population here that says, "I'm not English. We kicked out the English. We know better than that." Like they'll
Yeah,
call us out if we get it wrong.
that's correct. We need more than anything. We need credibility. This is the
Yes.
basic. If you lost your credibility, you lost everything. So you cannot just invent lies and be aggressive with some people just because you have some prejudices and invent lies because this is against you. You lose your credibility,
Yeah.
basically. And everything with documents. This is what the documents is saying. You cannot just shut up my mouth because you cannot cancel me because there is a document, and that's it. If you lose your credibility, and I told you this is something that I told you, I remember the first day we talked. Don't lose your credibility. Always the truth, even if it's hurting you.
Mhm.
Always the truth.
Always the truth.
Always the truth. And this is how you and me we are working. So
Yeah, I'm very happy, man. Thank you again for taking time. Thank you, appreciate you, and I
Zacarías,
won't take much more of your time. I bet it's late over there. It's later than it is for me. So, I'm in California. You're in Texas. So, but okay.
so I will promise you that my future works will be, if not first in English, it will be very fast in English.
Yeah. Nice.
Because I think we need it. We need. So
Yeah. Oh
people
yeah.
in Spain they know and blah blah blah, but we need to make the difference here. We need to talk in and speak in English and tell the English speakers that they are wrong or that they are right, but in English. Yeah. So
Yes,
I
of
promise you.
course. Perfect. Bueno, que Dios te bendiga. Okay. I'll see you later.
Igualmente, Zacarías.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.